Hey, how are you? I'm
Good.
good. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you,
It's
AJ.
good to see you too. I was like, oh my God, I gotta pull over. I gotta get on this call.
I was just bragging about you to everyone.
Oh, good
I was telling them about how
times.
I'm just so proud of you and how you just keep upping your game, and
Oh,
you have
thank
many
you.
different SKUs and you are coast to coast and you are just doing your thing, and it's like so important for us to really support one another.
Yes, that's so
Because I
true.
was saying, I was telling the story about how I get so many DMs of people telling me that my products are the best they've ever used for brows or this and that.
Yes.
And they DM me, but they don't say it on their actual post. You know what I mean? And they want me to pay them to say it, but they just tell me that it's
Yes.
the best they've ever used. And I am a black-owned brand, 100%.
Yes.
And
Same.
I don't have allocated funds to pay you to say that it's the best thing that you've used, even though you just told me that. But
Yeah.
you are someone that's always supported me regardless. So I just want to personally thank you in front of everyone for doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. And I was telling about
Yeah, I
your...
think that's what it's about.
Yeah, that's what it's about. And I was telling about your Kissable Couture and how I wanted to carry it in Beverly Hills because I knew that it was going to reach an audience that it necessarily wouldn't have access to if I didn't carry it at the time in Beverly Hills at the salon. And I think that that's what we do. We pull each other up when we can, and we help each other grow. And that's why I wanted you to join us here today, because I think it's important that we talk about what's going on in the world and talk about your journey and how you got here. And hopefully we can inspire a few other people to live their best lives and go for their dreams.
Yes, exactly. No, I love that. No, that's amazing. I mean, yeah, it's like the whole, like, first, to go back to what you were saying about being like 100% owned, like black owned business, like I'm just like you, and you know, and I've seen, I know people have come to me and told me how their clients that, oh my God, AJ, I love your stuff. I use it all the time, and you know, and I use it on so and so, and you know, but they won't let me. They want me to credit Chanel, or they want me to credit someone else because those girls were trying to get the look, you know, from that brand, get them to look at them. And it's like, wow, like, you know what? And this is, imagine, like right now, all these major brands are looking at anybody black, you know, at this point. But this was like a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, from the inception, where a lot of these brands weren't really checking for black girls. You know what I mean? And you tagging them and saying that that product that made you look so great was this particular brand that doesn't make a color for you at all, you know, it doesn't do that brand any justice, because you're lying to the people who look up to you, because now they're going to go there to look for something like that and it doesn't exist, you know. And then also you do this brand disjustice because you know that you want your artist to use my product on you, but you want to call it someone else, you know. So it's like, at what point do you expect an AJ Crimson or a Damone Roberts or any one of those of our brands to get to that level of stature and success, like a Chanel or whomever it is that you admire, to be looked at or talked about by, if you don't support the brand that's actually making it happen for you now, before it's cool to do so.
Right.
You know, so that is, you know, now it's cool. Like this past week, I'm in everything from
cool.
This week I've been in everything from Forbes to anybody else's beauty lines blog and all this other stuff, and makeup artists have come out of the woodworks like, oh my God, I love this stuff, like, you know. And I was like, wow, like, I knew you have the product, but this is my 7th year in business and I've never heard anybody talk about it till now, you know. So now it's cool. Now it's time to use the voice. And there isn't a thing. I've been or you say you didn't have the funds to pay influencers to talk about your product. I came into this business knowing that I wasn't going to do that. It was no point for me. Tom Ford is not paying you to talk about his product. You talk about it because you love it, because you love the packaging, because you love being a part of the conversation. So I'm creating something that allows you to actually, I built the conversation around you. So you don't have to fit yourself in the box, because the box has been fit around you. So this is more of a time and more of a reason for you want to celebrate it. And that's always been my stance on it. I've very rarely done a lot of gifting because, again, you know, it's a black-owned business, and we're building and we're growing, and because it's black-owned doesn't mean it's discounted, and because it's black-owned doesn't mean it's free. If we're friends, you should absolutely be supporting and buying my product. You know, if I'm a super conglomerate and like a L'Oreal, and I'm like, hey, you know what? Let me send you a whole box. I'm sending boxes out to everybody at that point. But if I'm a growing business, then I need you to support it like one, and support me like the celebrity friends that you don't really have, that you support every day. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. And it's so deep because, again, we've been doing this for a minute.
Yeah.
And suddenly we're getting calls from all these different magazines and DMs and everything else about us and what we've done, because this week, we're on the topic of everyone's conversation, but obviously, next week it can go right back to what it was. How do you feel about that? Like, I just read the letter that Anna Wintour wrote about Vogue. And apologized. She apologized for saying that she takes full responsibility because they haven't used black photographers, black makeup artists, rarely black models or black designers in their magazines, and Vogue is considered the fashion Bible.
Yeah.
And she admitted that they haven't used it in any way. So she's saying she apologizes now. She's going to do better in the future. And I had mixed feelings about that. A part of me feels that it's great that she's acknowledging it and she's going to do better, but it bewilders me that has never come up to them before.
Well,
in any way.
And I don't believe that it hasn't come up before. I think that as a black creative in the business, we just have never really, we've been expected to always know how to do everything, because we had to. If you want to work in the environment, you have to aspire to be, accepted in that way, to get to that level, to where you're doing Vogue things. And that means that you are eliminating a lot of one side of yourself, or even an entire portion of what you could do, your abilities could do, so that you could appeal to this other thing. So you could be more white, basically, so that you could assimilate into like this white way of thinking and doing things. And that's one conversation. I don't think everyone doesn't have, how do I want to say it? It goes back to like style and aesthetic. And, I think that some things are a very different aesthetic and a different style. Like if you look at the things that we see flooding Instagram on a regular and consistent basis, they feel like it may not be the style and aesthetic of what a publication like Vogue is looking for. But there's a lot of creatives out there that absolutely are bringing an aesthetic and a style and adding more flavor on top of it, because they know how to do the other thing too. I'm not into putting on, you know what I mean, and that could add a little bit extra, and it's great. They'll use our work as references and then put their spin on it. But you know what? I don't have to use 8 layers of foundation on a girl unless she wants that. I can make it very clean, very nothing makeup, a no makeup look. But if you go to my page, which you will see that anyway, but like for some other artists, you go to their page and you see it and it's piled on, but there's a technique to that as well. And when you see those trends, as they call them, come down the runway or show up in the magazines, then all of a sudden it's a thing. You know what I mean? Like white women were wearing tons of makeup when Linda Evangelista was out, and like the 90s. The 90s was all about the glam that we see right now. Right. So, and then it went to this barely their skin. So it's not that we're not capable. It's just whether you want to use us and whether you want us to be a part of that conversation. At the same time, I feel like the publications or the entities where we were able to shine, they weren't letting enough of us be a part of that either. So it's not even just it happening on the Vogue end, but it's also happening on the black end too, because those black elite magazines that that are legacies for us. It was like fighting tooth and nail to be a part of that as well. You know what I mean? And even that wasn't done at a level. It wasn't done at a creative level like a W or a V or a Vogue Italia or something to that effect. So
Right. That's true. That's really true. It's so interesting because I've been, with all this going on, I've been doing so much soul searching and thinking a lot lately. Yeah. And I acknowledge that everything I have and I have achieved, I stand on the shoulders of people that opened the door for me. I'm very clear about that. And I also know that I've had some access a lot of people of color haven't had. And I want to be honest about that as well. And I think that's because, I have a salon in Beverly Hills. I have a salon, New York City, Fifth Avenue. My client base is a lot of white stars, Madonna, etc. And so I've been photographed for Vogue. I've been featured in Us Weekly and all those other magazines a lot. But it's not because of who I am, I don't feel. I think it's because of who I did or who I do, more so. And I...
Go ahead. I was going to say, well, that really always kind of goes back to it. I think about when I think about my career, and actually when I think about your career, I think it's been amazing. I think that what you've set yourself up for, and like from the beginning, again, it just goes back to style and aesthetic. Like me creating products, I've never been one to create a product that was like a drugstore product. I've sat down and I've conceptualized and tried to put together something that could work inside of a drugstore, and by the time we're done with it, it's like, oh, like this really just deserves to be in Neiman Marcus, because that's just my aesthetic. That's just where that's the world in which I live in. So, so that's a part of me. It's the fabric of that's a part of my DNA. However, at the same time, and so even with you, you knew that, hey, if I'm going to do this, I want to be in Beverly Hills. Because that's a part of your aesthetic, that's a part of your brand, it's a part of the lifestyle you love to live, the clientele that you amass. It's like, hey, like, you know what, you're in the right place, you're going to get the right clientele. You couldn't necessarily do that same business in a neighborhood that couldn't support the prices that you wanted to have for your skill and your talent, and sometimes we have to take our business where those dollars are. I think for my brand, I talk to I have this conversation with one of my friends quite regularly. She always brings this up. My friend Asia, she says, AJ, like you did one of the hardest things there is to do. Like you came in the door battling adversity because you chose to make a makeup line with Black women first as the conversation, knowing that she probably is gonna look at it a couple ways and flip it over and turn it around to see if it's really what she wants to do at that price point, because she's accustomed to buying things for $9 and $10 in the drugstore, because that's what she's been accustomed to getting. And when she has been spending $50 or $40 or more, it's because the name she's paying for is a Gucci or Tom Ford, and then that's a whole nother girl, because she wants to be a part of that conversation. I am basically on the ground level of being a Guerlain or a Dior or a Chanel. Absolutely. And I'm trying to build my legacy to a 200-year-old brand. So that is me having to retrain and recondition, and also find that Black woman who does appreciate those things, those other designer brands, but she wants something from a Black person. And I feel like we absolutely have the creativity and the know-how and the means to create something on that level within our framework for us that we can understand and identify with. And that's what I've been doing. And that's why I think I'm in it for the long game. So it's 7 years, and maybe I'm not a household name, but I'm a household name to the people that matter.
Right. And you're growing. And
we're growing.
Sure. Absolutely. How'd you get started? Let's go back. How'd you get started into makeup and first?
Honestly, my start in makeup was very. So I went to school to be an architect. I was in high school, and I was in high school and university at the same time. At around 10th or 11th grade, I started university, and I was going to school for design. And by the time I had graduated from high school, going into to finish my regular years in university, I had done a lot of public speaking, and I figured I was going to go more in the direction of using my voice. So I started working at a radio station, WJLB FM 98 in Detroit, and as a producer and music research coordinator. That fast forwarded into working for Michael Bivins from New Edition under a woman named Peggy Body, who was an artist development coordinator. So I started assisting and working for her and traveling with artists that she managed. Then I started to take my hand into developing my own artists, actually. And this was all still by the age of 22, I was doing this.
Wow.
And
amazing.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh, like, I really like this. And it was in that moment when I was helping to develop this one female artist, a makeup artist that was hired. I was like, man, I hate what you did. Like, I gave you an entire book of reference on what the looks were for this shoot. And, we're not anywhere close. So I'm trying to understand, like, how we got here. And I was like, if I had your stuff, I would just do this myself, because that was the mindset I'd always had. Like, if I could see it, I can do it. People have consistently told me throughout my life, like, oh, that can't happen, or you can't do it this way. And I was like, no, I think I can try it. So, I've always had to take it in my own hands to do it. So makeup has literally just been the one thing that kind of took off. So I got an opportunity I worked on 8 Mile. And Mark Bridges, the costume designer, he's like 2-time Oscar winner now. He basically took me from doing laundry. I was doing laundry for $100 a day on 8 Mile for about 2 weeks when I got hired in, and then I started working under him. And when the movie was over, he was like, hey, what are you going to do when this is over? I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll try to go to LA, or everybody's been talking about it, or maybe I'll just like kind of pick up this label job in New York. I was like, well, if you ever want to come to LA, I have a spare bedroom in my house. It's me and my brother that live there. Like, it's a pretty big house. We'll never run into each other. Like, you got to get out of Detroit. Like, you have so much more to offer. And that's why I took that job for $100 doing laundry. It didn't matter about the money. It didn't matter that I was doing laundry. I just needed somebody on that set to see how hardworking I was and how dope I could be and how determined I was to make something of my life, and something bigger than what was offered in the four corners of Detroit. And that opportunity came through that. And the next thing I know, 2 months later, I had $500 left and a bus ticket, and I was on my way to LA.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I think it says something about what you were saying about you gave this artist looks and they didn't do it, and you said, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
I think you have to have that kind of work ethic, because you have to make it work, period.
Yeah.
You have to listen to what the client wants, what they're asking for, and you got to know that you can overcome any obstacle that presents itself. And that's how you become an AJ Crimson. You got to keep doing so. Really, I'm reminded of a story. I remember when I first started, I was working at MAC as a makeup artist.
Okay,
and
yes.
A makeup artist got hired to do Chaka Khan for a video.
Okay.
And they took me as their assistant. And I remember we went on set, and I was so excited because it was, on set, and there were cameras and lights and makeup and hair and everything else. And she was doing Chaka Khan, and I was supposed to do the, the background people.
Okay.
And I heard Chaka Khan telling her, no, I want it more like this. And I could just hear it as I'm working. And I thought, and I'm hired by the other makeup artist, so the last thing I want to do is step on anyone's toes.
Step on toes.
Yeah. But at the same time, I was getting irritated because it was so simple what she was asking for, and the makeup artist was not doing it in any way. But I didn't say anything. I knew my place, so to speak.
Stay
for that
focused,
job.
yeah.
And it was a 2-day shoot. That night, I got home and I got a phone call from the director, and he said, Chaka wants you to be her makeup artist, and she wants to let the other lady go because she saw what you did on the other people. And I think that's a perfect example on how you always show up and you always do your best, because you never know who's watching, you never know who's looking, and you never know what opportunity is going to present itself. And from there, I went on doing makeup for Chaka Khan's album covers. I went on tours with makeup artists. I mean, we're still good friends. But my point is, like, I've always, no matter what I did, I was a cart pusher at Costco at one point. And I was the #1 cart pusher at Costco because I did the absolute best that I could do no matter what my job was. And people notice when you do your best.
I agree. I think that when you always you have to show up for you because nobody else is going to show up for you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You can't expect anybody else to show up for you when you don't show up for yourself. So I think when I remember when I was assisting, I learned how to airbrush and all this other stuff, and also when I came to work, I like to think that I dressed nice, and I would come to work always kind of dressed well, and the person I was working for at the time, like, he came with like a t-shirt and these scraggly jeans and like open-toed sandals, and I was like, okay, but everybody in production thought I was the key, and I was like, oh, like, they were telling me all this stuff. I was like, oh, I said, you don't want to, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you actually want to talk to him. And then they were like, I was like, I'm his assistant. And they were like, oh, okay. And, and I picked up on those things. I knew what those cues were, but at the same time, I remember the day I pulled my airbrush machine out, and the guy looked at me, And he said, "Oh, what's that?" I said, "Oh, it's my airbrush machine." He was like, "Oh, what are you going to do with that?" I said, "I was going to use it today." I said, "Would you?" And then he said, "Oh," and then I caught the O.
You caught the O.
And I said, "Would you prefer if I do it all by hand?" And he said, "Yeah, I would prefer that." I was like, "Okay, cool." And I just politely put it back under the counter because I knew, you know what I mean? This is your job.
Yeah,
this is your job. I knew how to assist. I knew how to be the assistant. I know what I'm capable of doing, and I will have my time. Right now, I'm on your time, and the people that need to see it, they'll understand it and they will recognize it, and I'll have my day. And I think that is I think that's one thing that's kind of missing in the world of beauty today. A lot with a lot of these assistants that I've come across a lot over the years. They are not. They're so focused on being you right now, not recognizing that it took you all this time to be the you are today.
All this time.
It wasn't microwavable. There's no way that I could have microwaved any part of my career, or you yours.
Yeah,
so, it's just like it takes time. And even with my brand, I had to, I would, like in my career, as with my brand, I experienced a lot of success really quickly and very early, and it moved really fast. And sometimes I'm so ambitious and I'm so hard on myself that I want 10 more steps. I want to, if I made 10 steps, I want to jump another 10, like in even more record time. And where I may accomplish that next 10, I'm going to get to that third 10 and it's going to get a little tougher. And it starts to be like, oh shit, like what just happened? Like, why is the ground shaking underneath my feet? And I don't understand this. And then all this stuff is happening around you. And, and people will say, oh, well, you should be doing this. You need to be doing this. How come you're not doing this? How come you're not there? How come well, how come you're not asking for me there? How come you're not doing this? And why can't I just be where I'm at right now?
Right.
Why can't we be excited about where I am right now? Because it took me a long time to get to this place right now. And when we look at brands when they're brands that you're comparing me to, those brands have been around for 25 years.
And they have millions of dollars behind them. And a team. There's PR, there's production, there's so much that people don't get.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I salute you. Now, you said your background is architecture, and you're 100% completely self-taught makeup artist. Do you find that that helped you with what you do with the balance?
Architecture,
blending?
Architecture just kind of gave me, it just gave me something to dream about. You know what I mean? I think it taught me to dream bigger dreams. And I've always just kind of been in that space. It allowed me to develop style and aesthetic. And I just keep going back to that because I think it's just so important. And in terms of being self-taught, in the beginning, I worked at a Mac counter. I went to go get a job. Like I was working at the label. And after I said that to that girl, I literally, I was like, you know what? I went to sleep thinking, like, you know what? I should go get some stuff, like, and figure this out. So I took the artist that I was working with, and I took her to the Mac store, and like nobody knew who she was, because she hadn't been put out yet. So I took her to the label. I took her from the label, and I took her to the Mac store. I was like, hey, can you do this look? This one that was so challenging, and I watched how they did it. I bought all the stuff. I took her back to the office and I tried it. And I took some Polaroids of it. And I was like, oh, this is kind of decent. I'm going to go back to that Mac store and get a job working there because I need to learn how to do foundation. And I spent maybe 8 months there, six or 7 months there, learning from some really amazing artists before I got 8 Mile. And then when I got to LA, I was here for maybe another 3 or 4 months before I let them know that I was in town, before I took the job that they had offered me. And then I ended up like working at Robertson or Hollywood and Highland, and then on Robertson at the Pro Store. And that's where I started to meet like artists like Torsten Witt and I got on, and which he was amazing. I did my first CoverGirl campaigns with him, like him, Molly Sims, and that was awesome. And he did like hair and makeup, and she's great, right? And then and then I got to work with Joanne Gare. That's where I learned airbrushing. And then I was called in I've been working so hard to like get on Matthew Anderson's team
Isn't he brilliant?
Amazing, like so smart and just like so creative, like everything. He taught me, it was him who taught me. He said, AJ, like he said, you have the makings to be a really great artist. He said, but you do makeup like you work at a makeup counter. And I was like, ooh, and I was just laughing. I was like in my head, I was like, yeah, I think, well, that's kind of where I was learning. And he said, no, you gotta he said, you don't have to paint by number. You don't have to put these 3 things here. Like, you need to feel it, like do this. And then also too, he challenged me to the point where it was all of his work. He said there was no airbrushing when I was starting. Right. He said everything that I did, I had to make it look like it was airbrushed, because if they had to spend, retouching was so expensive. He said if a photographer had to retouch my work, then that means I wasn't going to get called back again. If they had to spend too much money on that. So he really drove me to perfection, to getting as close to perfection as I possibly could without someone needing to retouch it. Like there's so many music videos that I've done with artists over the years where I've gone like, oh my God, like the beauty work looks so good, and and then the artist would tell me like, actually no, there was no, we saved money on this video. Like the director was telling me about that, like we barely had to do anything to it. So there's a lack of that's happening today, but I'm thankful for all of those experiences.
Of course, absolutely.
I love all of that. And I think it just, from me working in customer service to artist management to all these other things. I mean, I was an agent for 6 years. So many people didn't know that. Here in
I didn't know that either.
I ran my own agency for 6 years.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Very successful people at that agency too.
That's amazing. Matthew taught me how to contour correctly. I
love that.
Mac, and I would contour with brown all the time.
Okay.
And he's like, no, mix the brown with orange. And I started mixing it with orange, and I was like, wow, it was amazing. So it's those little tricks. You always got to be open for knowledge.
Yes.
There's always more knowledge out there. And
we got South Africa in the house. I see my South African friend Jermaine in the house. What's up, Jermaine? Yeah, I agree. I think it's all those little things. That are you friends with Renee Garnes?
Yes, I know Renee very well.
So Renee was the first Black person outside of Pat McGrath. So when I was able to assist Pat in Paris for a bunch of shows, Renee was like the second Black person that I had seen on a team, and her and Greg Brockington, they were the only 2 other Black people there, and I was talking to Renee maybe 6 months ago actually. And I was telling Renee, I was like, she was like, AJ, there's things. She said, I'm old school. She said, I'm an OG. She said, hell, you're like an OG now too. And I just started cracking up. And then she said, there's things that you're not gonna find on YouTube. She said, there's things that I know,
you'll never find
and there's things that that you'll never be able to find that on YouTube. And I think that that's actually really special. I mean, those things that Matthew knows that we'll never get to learn. You know what I mean? There's things that Joanne knows that we'll never get to learn. There's things that Sam knows that we'll never get to learn because it's just not, on YouTube. It's not popular at the moment. And I think that that's the tragedy of artistry, but.
I totally agree. How long did it go from there to starting your own makeup line? And was it out of necessity because you weren't finding what you needed?
So I got to LA in I think 8 Mile came out in 2006. I got to LA in 2005, and I basically hit the pavement for like 3 years. Like I came with no car. I was able to get unemployment off the movie for like 8 months, which was nice. And I was building my website, all that stuff, but I was on the bus everywhere. And I would say my first client was Fergie from Black Eyed Peas. As she was entering the group, and having worked with Fergie I was working with Fergie like maybe about 2 years into it, a year or 2 into it, and I picked up Keisha Cole as well. And I'd been spending so much money on lip glosses every time I would go see them, and I thought to myself, I was like, man, like I need to make this stuff because I'm spending so much money on it. And in my mind, it was just a thought. And then Fergie, there was a color from MAC that was discontinuing in a gloss, and she said, oh my God, she said, one day, she said, you should make this for me. And I was like, I just was thinking about making lip gloss. So it started with that. Keisha and I had become friends by that time, and I had already come up with the name Kissable Couture. and I'd been working with Faith Evans like in New York, and so I came to LA, and I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about. I was doing Keisha's makeup one day, and I was like, yeah, so I'm thinking about starting a lip gloss line called Kissable Couture, and she said, oh, that sounds dope. I would love to do that with you. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And in my mind, I was like, oh, she's just talking. That's like some old Hollywood, like the girls just say they want to be a part of something. So I just kind of paid it. I was like, oh, that's cute, And I remember going back to New York, and she called me one day out of the blue. She was like, hey, baby, like, what's going on? I was like, hey, what's up? And she goes, so what's going on with our lip gloss empire? And I was like, oh, I didn't. I was like, you're serious? And she's like, yeah. I was like, well, I have this meeting coming up. Can you meet me in New York? She came to New York. We took the meeting. It started to be really great, and it was partly out of necessity in the sense of, at that time, doing makeup in 2005, 2006, girls weren't just calling makeup artists in to do their makeup. You had to have an agent, all this other stuff. So I was literally sitting in New York for like a week waiting on Fergie to get to town, because she and I at that point were splitting my airfare to be places with her. So I had to go a week earlier because the ticket was cheap. So I'm sitting in my friend's loft, and I'm like, man, like I need to make something now, because I need something to be making money while I'm sitting here making no money. And I think this lipstick or lip gloss thing is going to be it. And that's where the idea really started to develop. And in 2007, it launched on Oprah. We launched it on Oprah's Favorite Things. And I did a write-up on my birthday, August 10th, in WWD. And our first two retailers were Fred Siegel in LA and Henry Bendel in New York.
That's amazing.
And then you were like, AJ, I need this. And then we got into Beverly Hills. Whee!
Yeah, I loved it. This is a quote I got from your website, because I did a lot of research on you. And it's so funny, because you know people, and I know you for years, but I'm finding out so much about you that I never knew. And again, I've always respected you, but even on a deeper level, knowing your story more so now. This quote, the AJ Crimson Beauty Cosmetics line was born out of necessity. Colors that work and don't oxidize or change on our skin. Now, I definitely want you to talk on that, because that's something that I have always tried to tell people when it comes to my products. Like, for example, my products are brows only at this point. And I designed the color specifically because every time I would use a brow pencil on a person of color, it would turn gray or ashier or green or blue undertones. And so I can proudly say that my colors, if you're using a Minx pencil, it's a chocolate brown. If you're using a Miss Ross, it's a dark. You know what I mean? They don't change you. They don't oxidize. And I think that that's so important, because people don't get that. So imagine, I'm sure you had the same issue going into the lab with the shower coat and the cap, and you're talking to all these white men, basically, that are, older, and they're scientists, and they don't understand what you're saying. So you realize, like, companies like L'Oreal, Revlon, etc., they have all these lines for people, but they forget about us, because our skin oxidizes differently with cosmetics than others. And I think that your line is really true to that too. You get what you're purchasing. Can you speak on that?
For sure. I mean, for me, it's always been about. When I was just starting, I would always carry like 5 different foundations with me in my kit, because I never knew what I would need for whomever I'm working with that day.
Right.
And when it came time to develop AJ Crimson, I went through quite a few different cream formulations before we landed on our dual skin cream foundation. And it was a thing of, I didn't want it to change color throughout the day. I mean, there's brands that we know that are legacy brands to this point, especially within the Black community, where when you put it on in the morning, it's this one shade, and then by the time you get to noon, because of your oils in your skin, and
and then you open the compact, and it's just oil on top,
and it's just orange. It's like, how did I get to be orange now? You know what I mean? I was so warm and golden and brown, so I knew I wanted that, and that really took time. I mean, I remember testing a foundation stick at a trade show, and I told this girl, it was like my darkest color at the time, which is nowhere near my darkest color now. And I was like, oh my God, I got the perfect color for you. Come over here and let me, swipe it on you. And we swiped it. And because on me, it did appear to work. When I swiped it on her skin, all I saw was this just green busted out. Just so much green came from the undertone of it. And I looked at it, and I looked up at her while she was looking down at it, and then she finally lifted her eyes to look up at me, and all I could do was just grab a white and just wipe it off, because there was literally no way to turn it. There was no way to flip it.
Right,
there was no way
just, like, let me wipe it off.
I was like, wow, that's really not it. I was like, I guess I don't have it. I was like, okay, and then. And I took that back to the drawing board, and it was like a thing for me. It was like, we have to make this color has to match a girl who's South Sudanese,
right.
Period.
Right.
And if it can't, and if we can get a color that matches her, then we can get all the other colors behind it. And that was then the mission, to do that. So when we launched with number 8, which is a color that so many brands have tried to copy and duplicate, and since this time. And some people have gotten kind of close. It does something kind of funky in a couple of them that I've seen, but yeah,
it's amazing.
It's exciting. Yeah,
it is exciting, but you're right. It's so hard. I can't tell how many products I've actually developed that I go into a store and I see that didn't exist, and I know that I created. I had the thought concept. Right. I didn't have the funds to bring it to reality, and someone saw it and sent it to the masses. Made a lot of money. There's one particular line out there, cosmetically, that just sold for over $1 billion, and I, truthfully, designed the line. So that's a whole nother conversation. And again, of course, get no credit for it in any way way whatsoever. But my point is, like, we have so much opportunity.
Was this a recent
We have so much creativity, but we have much more opportunity than a lot of others in the industry.
Yeah, it does, and I think that's a couple. I don't want to say it's a fault, because I don't know that it's necessarily anybody's fault. However, I do place responsibility on both ends of the spectrum. One, as a developer and a brand owner, is my responsibility to work and do as much as I can to promote and get the product out there to as many people as I possibly can, get the conversation going. But then it's also the responsibility of our community and those who do know us to tell people that don't know us about us. And because that is how it happens on the other end and on the other spectrum, for our counterparts. Because these are people that come to the table with probably I started my brand with $5,000, you know what I mean? And somebody with that same type of investment, it could be bigger and blown up overnight. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. and people knocking down the doors, like bigger companies coming. I think that the tragedy, of the last maybe 7 years for me has been watching so many bigger brands, instead of coming to us and saying, hey, like, you know what? We believe in what you're doing. We see what you're doing is innovative, and you're onto something. Absolutely. And you really do have this direct voice and conversation with Black women. How can we support you? How can we, bring you into the fold and give you our resources to help build this up? How can we partner with you to do that? And instead of doing that, what they've done is basically bought the line online and brought it in-house to basically just copy.
It happens all the time to me, all the time.
And then give it to a white face or a white voice, and then have them, now this white voice is now the champion for Black women, which Black women fall into the trap every time. Like, I'll never forget the day that I saw on a brand's page, oh my God, Chocolate Girls Unite. And I say this in all my lives, I'll never forget that day, because that was a day that really broke my heart. Like, because, it's like, wait, like, no, like, Chocolate Girls Unite. Like, why are you now uniting? Because this white woman brought you colors that I'm looking at them. She got them from me.
Absolutely.
And I've been making them. And I'm not the first person to make colors exclusively for Black women, because there was Fashion Fair. But then, and even Black Opal, because Black Opal wasn't Black owned until now, until like in the last 2 years has become Black owned. But they were making colors, but not the same aesthetic. The Black Fashion Fair was the only line that was owned by Black people that you could go into a department store or a major retailer and get it outside of Iman, because Iman went from Sephora to Target to I don't know where else you could get it at that.
But Iman's also not Black owned.
Exactly, that part too.
Yeah, there's a lot of Black. I wanted to say to people that are listening, there's a lot of people that have a black name, a black face, but doesn't mean that
it's black owned.
It's black owned. So Iman is, I'm a huge fan, of course. I know her personally, she's amazing, but she's not black owned.
Yeah, and you know, and I think that, and it's just, and it's like, and you know, and I know that black people are hungry for it. Black people, black women, black voices, black enthusiasts, they're hungry for what it is that we have to offer. But they're also not doing the research to find out, to make sure it's this. If they see a black face on it, they just automatically assume that it's black owned. You know, or they're shopping based on price point. Oh, is it going to be affordable? Well, what's affordable? Because
exactly, what is
like
affordable?
What is affordable? What does that mean?
You're going to buy Tom Ford and Chanel. But
yes, that was affordable. Was that affordable? Because that's affordable to me. Like if that's what I'm in the market for. But it depends on what your level of affordability is, and I also had to take myself out of that conversation as well. You know, it's like I'm not in the business of being everything for everybody. 2017 was probably the most tumultuous year of business for me, and most tumultuous year of business in my entire 16 years of business, being in business for myself, because I was in a space where I actually was trying to be something for each and every person, and I had to take a step back and realize, like, hey, like, you know what, if what you're putting on your skin is if it doesn't matter to you, if you'd rather go get something that was produced in China and made, you know, for, you know, $6, and that's what's right for you and your pockets, go for it. I'm all for it. Do it. That's just not the story I'm telling, and I'm okay with that, because if my compact costs $45 and it lasts you 6 months, and I know that this is less than 25 cents a day. If you can't afford to give yourself 25 cents a day, the same 25 cents we can find on the street in a day, then this product was never for you. And that is okay also. You know what I mean? So I think it's just, you know, I had to really get back into, you know, knowing my audience, understanding who I wanted to talk to, and allowing that tribe to find me. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you think that with everything going on right now, that things are actually going to change for brands like you and me?
I think so, actually. I'm looking forward to that. I think that, I mean, I find that there's one thing that's happened this week with all of this has brought a level of recognition, and a level of recognition that I think has been long overdue in terms of like certain outlets that are featuring and talking about AJ Crimson Beauty and other black-owned brands that we know of. They should have been a conversation. We should have been a part of the conversation. We should have been a part of the what's new next, you know, period, because we have been innovating. I believe that from what I'm seeing, a lot of artists that wouldn't have normally, and not black artists, actually a lot of white artists that should have been talking about the product, because I know you had it a long time ago. Now you're talking about it. Keep talking about it. Don't let it stop now. Like now, and even calling out how Alma Beauty has brought these beauty brands, invited them down to the carpet to tell their statistics and to say, hey, like, who do you have in the background working? It's the same thing that I've been saying. It's the same thing I'm sure you've been saying. It's the same thing that I have recognized, and I know that Sam has been saying. You know, you can't speak to black women or black people and not have black voices in the development room and on the boardroom and the marketing room. And then I need black people to recognize, stop trying to fit yourself in everybody else's conversation and start talking to brands that have been historically talking to you, period. Right. Because that is what if you get nothing out of this movement that's happening right now, it is that black people have had the ability a long time ago to sustain our own community and sustain our own businesses. We don't. You see this in the music business all the time, where if Beyonce has red hair this week, then the other 5 girls can't have red hair because, they're trying to be like Beyonce. But if Gwyneth Paltrow dyes her hair red, then the other 5 girls can also have red hair on the same red carpet, and none of them are compared to Gwyneth Paltrow. Like, we have to stop doing that to ourselves in the community, because you have a brow collection that you could do, that you have a brow collection, whomever. If there's another young black person that's coming up with a brow collection, you could be in business, they could be in business, and 2 more people can be in business. I have lip gloss and foundation, and that doesn't mean that you can't have a little bit of AJ Crimson, a little bit of Pat McGrath, a little bit of Melissa Butler at the lip bar, a little bit of whoever else is making black foundation, and mix that stuff together and come up with an amazing, flawless finish.
Absolutely.
But we can all be multi-millionaires just based on our $1 trillion spending. Black people spend $1 trillion. So it's like, we got to stop doing that shit to ourselves.
I agree. And I think it's so important, too, for those that are watching that don't understand, just because the company has a black model in their campaign or something, or they come with this foundation that appeals to darker skin.
Yeah.
The real change is in the business end. Who sits at the board? Who helps make the decisions? Who helps design the collections? You know, those people need to be in color, too, because you see recently within the last year, a lot of the high-end fashion brands got called to task because they released things that, for sure, if they had a person of color on their board,
it never would have got there.
Yeah, they would have put it out there.
And it's just taking accountability. I have a new collection coming out that I had a very controversial collection title for it, and I sent it to my team members, and I was like, "Oh my God, I got the name of the collection finally. This is what we're gonna do." And one of my team members wrote back and said, everybody laughed, and then one of them wrote back and said, "Oh, this is cute. Like, this is nice. I like it. So how are we gonna do this?" And I was like, "Oh, like, we're gonna do this." Like, he said, "That can't be on the box." He said, we can't put that on the website. Like, he said, "AJ, that's not gonna work." And I was like, "Well, no, it's so funny. Like, I think black girls will get it." And I was like, "Well, I said, "No, we're gonna do it." I said, "But since you raised this question, let me ask a few of my black homegirls, in the business, and see what they think." And I took it around, and I got the response that I was looking for. But then I got the however as I went up the chain. So I went to my girls who are like VPs for other fashion brands and stuff like that, and they were like, "Yeah, so you can't call it that. Like, I get why you're doing that, but you're also your brand reaches beyond black women. So, where we're going to understand what you're saying, but are the other people going to understand it? And do you want to? Is this the seat that you want to sit in?" So it was a very interesting one. So I was like, okay, these are some good points. But these are simple things that I think that most brands and most companies can do. It literally took me all of 20, 30 minutes to send this around to a couple of trusted voices to see if I was going to either set myself up for success or end up on the shade room for,
But you did. Hey, don't you believe our hour is almost over? I mean, it goes by so
Oh my God, why is it so fast?
Isn't that crazy? I always do this thing called a lightning round with people.
Okay.
And what it is, I throw things at you real quick, and you just tell me your first response, okay?
Okay.
All right, so real simple. Summer or winter?
Summer.
Red lip or nude lip?
Red.
Jazz or rap?
Rap.
Morning or night?
Morning.
Shine or matte?
Shine.
Michael Jackson or Prince?
Michael Jackson.
All right. Finish these sentences.
Ooh.
I find I'm most happy when?
When I'm on an airplane.
Why is that?
I get my best ideas traveling coast to coast. Like, I'll find one song that just works, and I'll play the song over and over and over.
I love
can literally create an entire marketing plan and a vision for something on a plane.
Wow. At this point in my life journey, the most challenging thing is? At this point.
Oh, at this point, dealing with motherfuckers. That's the only way I can say
that
it.
One.
Shit,
Yeah, just great one.
Dealing with motherfuckers, boy.
That's the most challenging for sure. Okay, finish this one. I would like my legacy to be.
AJ Crimson gave a damn and worked very hard.
Worked very hard. I think you're there already, but I hear what you're saying for sure. What's your number one motivational tip?
Doing something for others that they can't do for themselves.
What's your number one self-love tip?
I don't want to say I'm enough, but it's more or less like if I can dream it, I can have it, and I can work my way to deserving it.
Right. What's your number one beauty tip?
Dewy skin it'll make you look younger and fabulous more times than not.
More times than not. Your website, can you give everyone your web address and where they can purchase your products?
You can purchase AJ Crimson Beauty products at ajcrimson.com. Everything in my life is AJ Crimson. So you can follow me at AJ Crimson on Instagram. You can go to ajcrimson.com to purchase. And you can also, just get your best life.
Yeah.
And follow AJ Crimson Beauty.
You have something called Match Me Perfect and AJ Crimson Beauty video call.
You are the best. Yes.
At your website.
So if you guys ever, if you want to try the product and you don't know your shade, I encourage you to go to ajcrimson.com and you can set up an appointment where I do video matching. So I can literally match you through the phone because I know my colors that well. So I can set you up and help you to. I write an AJ Crimson prescription for you, basically.
Oh, I love that. And you say you have more stuff coming out soon.
Yes, in like 3 weeks.
Can you talk about any of it? We got 2 minutes.
You know what? So I don't want to say too much. It's a new formulation of lip glosses, which I'm super excited about. I think this is probably going to be the most detailed collection I've done. And I also I'm working on I've been working on skincare for a while, so I'm really close on that too, on the launch date. So can I tell you what I miss? And I don't know if you have some. If you have some, I want to buy some. Your AM/PM wipes.
See, that's something that was ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And I think it was a little too ahead of the curve. People didn't get it, and someone else. It was one of those things that the big company purchased it. I know they purchased it from me. But they copied it. You know how that goes.
Got it.
And so it's just another one of those things. But again, like someone put on this IG Live, Karma's a bitch. She doesn't lose your address. And she definitely does it. She always finds you. You can run, but you can't hide from her.
Right. I see somebody said there's no appointments in June. If you just hit me in the DMs and let me know that you want to set it up, we just have to set up some more dates.
And where are you located now?
I am everywhere I need to be.
That's the most important thing to do.
I'm wherever the check is, wherever it calls me to.
See, that's why I like with you.
Yes, if the coin says I need to be over there, then I'm gonna be right over there.
I love it. Thank you, AJ, for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
It was good, and I think we inspired a lot of people, and hopefully, they take it to the next level. And I will talk to you offline as well.
All right, you be safe.
All right.
Be safe,
Thank you, baby.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.